She stared me in the eyes and said, "Put the ring box on my desk. I'll handle it." The next day, it vanished. I got fired, humiliated, and nearly arrested. 7 years later, she walked into my office, asking me for a job. If you've ever been betrayed and dreamed of a second chance to set things right, this story is for you. Hit that subscribe button, like this video, and stay with me as I tell you how I turned years of silence into a perfectly crafted revenge. Let's get into it. If you had told me, at 27, that my biggest career failure would become my greatest revenge story, I would have laughed. I wasn't the type. Not petty. Not vindictive. I believed in karma, in working hard, in staying quiet even when I should have screamed. But life, especially when you're a woman trying to make something of yourself, has a way of chewing up that optimism until all you're left with is resolve. My name is Ava Martin. Back then, I was just a warehouse supervisor at a high-end specialty store, Company B. They called it half retail, half ego playground. We sold everything from imported groceries to custom jewelry that cost more than my monthly rent. I was hired while still putting myself through university, climbing my way up one scraped knuckle at a time. I'd started my adult life at Company A, a smaller firm run by a man who treated us like family. Real family. Birthday bonuses, paid time off for his son's wedding, and genuine concern in his eyes when he shook your hand. But I wanted more than loyalty. I wanted leverage. So I gave him my notice and went back to school to earn a degree in business administration. He didn't guilt me. He just nodded and said, "Come back if you ever need a home." 2 years into my studies, I found Company B bigger, colder, transactional. No one looked you in the eye unless they needed something. But it paid the rent, and eventually, when I graduated, they offered me the warehouse supervisor role. 50 employees, constant turnover, but I made it work. I ran a tight ship, taught my clerks to document everything, and created protocols so precise even a power outage couldn't screw them up. Then came Dana. I remember the first time I saw her. Sharp red nails, perfume too loud for a warehouse, and a smile that looked like it practiced its lines in the mirror. She started as a cashier, but Dana had this uncanny ability to latch onto power. Within months, she was rubbing shoulders with the store manager, and by the time one of the sales supervisors went on maternity leave, Dana had slithered into that seat like it had her name engraved on it. At first, I thought she was just ambitious. But ambition isn't always toxic until it starts poisoning everything around it. Dana and I? We clashed like vinegar and baking soda. Every meeting, she'd interrupt me mid-sentence, twist my ideas into hers, and then brag to the manager about streamlining operations. If one of her team made a mistake, she'd find a way to blame it on my staff. If a client complaint came in, she'd pull out a fabricated story faster than HR could blink. But what made it unbearable was that she didn't stop at discrediting me, she needed to destroy me. I still remember the day everything shattered. It was a Tuesday morning, sunny, quiet, the kind of day where you almost feel safe. A velvet ring box had arrived, custom ordered, insured, $5,000 worth of diamond brilliance, and clearly marked as urgent. It was for one of our elite clients, the type who had personal shoppers and expected white glove service. The protocol I'd written years ago was clear: items like this were to be cataloged, verified, and taken directly to the office safe. That morning, I followed every step, down to the pen stroke. My assistant, Kayla, was with me when I said, "I'll run this up to the office." She nodded, trusted me. The only person in the office with the safe combination was Dana. When I walked in, she barely looked up from her desk. "Hey," I said, "I need you to put this in the safe." She paused. Glanced at the box. Her red nails hovered over her keyboard. "Just leave it on my desk," she said. "I'll put it away when I'm done." Something in my gut clenched. We'd argued just 2 hours before, over nothing really, inventory placement. She'd accused me of trying to undermine the sales floor. I didn't like leaving the box. But the office was small, and her chair blocked the path to the safe. I didn't want a scene. So I did what I would regret forever. I left it. The next morning, I was called to the manager's office. Inside sat Marcus, our store manager, Dana, and an HR rep I didn't recognize. The air felt thick. Dana smiled, barely. "The ring set's missing," Marcus said. "The box is empty." I blinked. "No." I packed it myself. I handed it to Dana. They showed me the box. Empty. Immaculate. I explained everything. Every step. Every policy. Every word I had spoken. Dana tilted her head and said, "I never saw a ring." She dropped the box on my desk and left. I felt heat rise to my face. "That's not true." Marcus frowned. "Were you the last to handle it?" I hesitated. "Technically, yes. But only because she..." "Without cameras, we don't have a way to verify," the HR rep cut in. That's when I realized the security feed had been down for days. Perfect timing. They didn't accuse me of stealing, at least not directly. But they let me go. Terminated for mishandling company property. No charges. Just the stain on my name and the weight in my chest. I packed my desk. Told Kayla. She cried. I didn't. Not then. It wasn't until I got home, sat on my bed, and stared at the empty box of moving files that I let myself break. I'd spent 7 years building a life. In 15 minutes, it was stripped from me by a woman who smiled as she cut the rope. But what I didn't know was that Kayla had already started weaving a noose. They say betrayal cracks something deep inside you. But sometimes, it also activates a part of your soul that's been sleeping, the part that doesn't forgive. The part that waits. After I was fired, I disappeared from Company B's world like I had never existed. No emails. No calls. No appeals. At first, I tried to survive, emotionally and financially. I spent 2 weeks frozen, my body moving through routine, my mind playing on loop the look on Dana's face when she realized I had no defense. That smug, practiced innocence. That who, me, tone. I started applying for jobs, knowing the reference from Company B would be a kiss of death. Most didn't call back. The ones that did seemed to lose interest the moment they heard warehouse supervisor at Company B and termination. That stigma follows you like a whisper in the wind. You can't point to it, but you feel its sting. Then I made a desperate call, to an old number I prayed was still in service. Mr. Raleigh, the owner of Company A. The man who had once treated us like family. When he picked up and I said my name, I didn't even get past the second sentence before his voice softened. "I was wondering when I'd hear from you again," he said. I told him what happened. Not the sugar-coated version. Not the damage-controlled one. The truth. The accusation. The setup. The absence of evidence. He didn't hesitate. "You have impeccable character, Ava. I always said I'd save a seat for you. Turns out we've got one opening soon." Turns out the manager who had beaten me out years ago was retiring for health reasons. Life, in all its chaotic poetry, had turned the wheel back around. I started at Company A within the month. It was humbling. Bittersweet. Healing. But that's not where the story ends. Because while I moved on, someone stayed behind. Kayla. She was younger than me. Bright. Loyal to the bone. And she knew me well enough to see through the corporate lies that led to my firing. The moment I told her what had happened, she didn't just express sadness, she expressed suspicion. And she wasn't about to let Dana get away with it. But Kayla was smart. She didn't confront her. She didn't make a scene. She made a plan. She called it playing the long game. It started with a few carefully planted seeds. Casual comments in the break room. Strategic sympathy. "I'm so glad Ava's gone," she told Dana one day, voice hushed and eyes wide like a teenager confessing a secret. "She was too intense, right? Always micromanaging." Dana smiled. Kayla was in. Within weeks, Dana had invited her out for drinks after work. Within 2 months, Kayla and her husband, Troy, were hosting double dates with Dana and her husband, Matt. Wine tastings. Movie nights. Backyard barbecues. The whole suburban charade. Kayla told me later it was like acting in a low-budget soap opera. She'd listen to Dana complain about everything and everyone, especially me. "Ava never knew how to lead," Dana would sneer, glass of red wine swirling in hand. "She was obsessed with rules. No vision." Kayla would nod. Smile. Wait. And all the while, Troy was watching too. Patient. Alert. Because Troy was the backup plan. And he had one job. Record. For over a year, they played their parts. Gained trust. Blended in. Kayla would call me after certain nights, speaking in code. "The snake hissed tonight," she'd say. Or "she's getting loose." Each time, she pushed Dana a little further. Just enough to keep her comfortable. To keep her bragging. But Dana was careful. Too careful. She'd say she was glad I was gone, but never confess. She'd mention the missing rings like they were an unfortunate mystery, never her responsibility. Until one humid Saturday night, something changed. They were at Dana's house. Kayla and Troy had just helped her and Matt set up a backyard fire pit. Bottles of wine were open. Music was playing, Fleetwood Mac, of all things. Dana had that flushed look people get when they've had just enough alcohol to feel untouchable. Kayla took a chance. She leaned in, smirked, and said, "God, can you believe they still haven't found those rings?" Dana's laugh was sharp. "Found them? Honey, I never lost them." Kayla blinked. Played dumb. "Wait, what do you mean?" Dana sipped her wine. "Let's just say, when someone pisses you off enough, you find a way to remind them who's in charge." Troy shifted his seat slightly. That was his signal. His phone was recording. Kayla kept her voice steady. "You're joking." Dana grinned. "I told her to leave the box." She did. I opened the safe. Then I thought, why not? I knew the cameras were down. She had no way to prove anything. "You kept them?" Dana stood up and waved them into the house. "Come on. I'll show you." In the master bedroom, tucked behind a stack of folded scarves in the top drawer of her vanity, sat a velvet box. The same one I had delivered to her desk that morning years ago. She opened it. Diamonds gleamed in the light. "Still got it," she whispered, running her fingers over the stones like they were trophies. Kayla forced a laugh. "Damn, you're bold." Dana winked. "That's why I'm still here." And she's not. What she didn't know, what she couldn't know, was that her confession had already been sealed in digital amber. Kayla and Troy excused themselves shortly after, citing a babysitter curfew. They drove home in silence, adrenaline burning through their veins. The next morning, Kayla walked into Company B early. Calm. Composed. She handed a USB to Marcus. "Play this," she said. It took less than a minute before the blood drained from his face. The police were called that same day. Dana was arrested within 24 hours. They found the rings. The box. The matching receipt. And the recording? Ironclad. Irrefutable. Dana's attorney tried to claim entrapment, but the judge didn't flinch. I didn't even know what was happening until my phone rang weeks later. It was the prosecutor. And he had one question. "Miss Martin, would you be willing to testify?" When the call came, I was restocking the coffee machine at Company A's break room, just another quiet Tuesday afternoon. The prosecutor's voice was professional, but something in his tone made me set the mug down slowly. "Miss Martin, we've arrested Dana Whitmore on multiple charges, including felony theft. The recording is admissible, and we have the physical evidence. I'd like you to testify to the events surrounding your termination. Will you?" I didn't hesitate. Yes. I expected the flood of emotions afterward, anxiety, relief, maybe even fear. But what I felt was something steadier, quieter, deeper. Righteousness. The trial date was set 4 months out, and during that time, I met regularly with the assistant DA. We reviewed my testimony. I answered every question with calm precision. For every twist Dana had created in her lies, I provided the straight line. Kayla and Troy testified too. They weren't just witnesses, they were the architects of this justice. Troy handed over the original phone recordings and screen captured the metadata to prove its authenticity. Kayla gave a detailed account of Dana's confession, her history of manipulation, and her years-long facade. Every word they spoke chipped away at the persona Dana had so carefully constructed. In the courtroom, Dana looked smaller than I remembered. Her hair, once perfectly ironed and sprayed, was limp. Her blouse looked expensive, but wrinkled. Her eyes, those calculating, always scheming eyes, darted nervously as if looking for an exit that didn't exist. She didn't make eye contact with me. Not once. Her lawyer tried to turn the narrative around. Claimed Dana had been intoxicated. That Kayla and Troy had manipulated her into confessing. That I had a grudge after being terminated. But the judge saw through it. There was video. Audio. Physical evidence. Multiple witnesses. And perhaps most importantly, motive. Dana hadn't just stolen for greed, she stole to eliminate someone she viewed as competition. Someone she couldn't control. That made her dangerous. After 4 days of testimony and another day of deliberation, the verdict came in. Guilty on all counts. The judge gave her 5 years. I heard her gasp. It wasn't a scream. It wasn't a cry. It was that sharp inhale you make when your carefully curated world begins to crumble and you realize everyone is watching. She turned to her husband, Matt, seated in the front row. He didn't move. And just like that, the bailiff took her away. But I wasn't done. Because justice in court is one thing. But justice for your life? For the lies told about you? That requires a different kind of reckoning. I hired a lawyer. We filed a civil suit against Dana for defamation, emotional distress, and loss of income. I wanted back pay for every month I spent jobless, as well as punitive damages for the career damage she caused. But we didn't stop there. Company B, my former employer, was next. We sent a formal letter of intent to sue for wrongful termination, citing negligence in their investigation, failure to preserve video surveillance, and unjust damage to my professional reputation. Their lawyers responded within days. The settlement was immediate. They knew. They had known deep down even back then. But Dana had protected herself with charm, and they had been too cowardly to dig deeper. They offered me a full payout, back wages, legal fees, a formal apology in writing, and a signed statement acknowledging my innocence. I signed the NDA and cashed the check. But Dana? Dana thought she could be clever. Her husband filed for divorce 3 weeks after the sentencing. At first, I thought it was real. That maybe he wanted to distance himself from the humiliation. But my lawyer dug deeper. Turns out, Matt and Dana had shifted assets between them quietly, bank accounts, jewelry, even their shared home, trying to shield Dana from any financial consequences of my lawsuit. My attorney smiled when he told me. We're adding him to the civil suit. Because fraud, you see, is like mold. It spreads. Matt tried to fight it, but the paper trail was damning. The judge ruled that both Dana and Matt were jointly responsible for the judgment. They were ordered to pay $3,500 in damages, plus court fees, plus interest. It wasn't millions. It wasn't flashy. But it was closure. It was the restoration of my name. And it was only the beginning of her downfall. 6 years passed. I thrived. Company A grew. I earned a regional director position. I built a team around trust, integrity, and resilience. I mentored young women who reminded me of myself, eager, undervalued, fighting to be heard. Then, one morning, my assistant forwarded me a resume. I almost dropped my coffee. It was her. Dana Whitmore. 6 years older. No employment listed since Company B. She had applied to a new logistics coordinator position we were hiring for through the general HR channel, unaware of who ran the department now. My assistant hadn't made the connection. But I had. I asked the owner, Mr. Raleigh, if I could personally sit in on that interview. He didn't ask questions. He just nodded. The interview was scheduled for 11 a.m. Thursday. She walked in 5 minutes early, portfolio in hand, blazer too stiff, eyes scanning the room. Until they landed on me. She froze. I smiled. "Good morning, Dana." She blinked, visibly trying to remember if this was real. Her voice cracked. "Ava? I go by Director Martin here. But yes. Please, have a seat." She didn't. I opened her resume slowly, like I was reading poetry. 6 years without stable employment. No references listed from Company B. No letter of recommendation. Dana's mouth opened slightly, as if words would form. They didn't. "I'm sorry, Dana," I said, standing up. "I don't think you'll be a good fit for our company." She didn't argue. She just left. No words. No goodbyes. Just the quiet realization that she had walked, unknowingly, straight into the hands of the woman she tried to bury. I watched her go. No tantrum. No tears. Just that stunned, ghost-white face slowly backing out of my office like a deer realizing it stepped into a hunter's den. The automatic doors closed behind her with a soft hiss. It was the quietest victory I'd ever felt, and the loudest in my heart. I stood at the glass wall and looked down over the office floor, remembering how many times I'd imagined this day. But in every fantasy, I'd pictured myself shouting. Exposing her. Raging. Now that it had come? I didn't need to. Because nothing, absolutely nothing, hits harder than silence from the woman you tried to destroy while she holds the keys to your future. Dana had likely spent the last 6 years trying to scrub the internet of her criminal record. Applying to places where they wouldn't recognize her name. Trying to rebuild a life shattered by her own hand. But karma is cruel like that. It remembers even when the world forgets. And the universe has a poetic way of delivering closure, not with thunder, but with stillness. I didn't talk about her much after that. Most people in the office never even knew who she was. I never said her name again to Mr. Raleigh. He trusted me, and that was enough. But 1 week after her interview, I got a package. Unmarked. No return address. Inside was a velvet ring box. My heart stuttered. For a moment, I thought someone was playing a joke. But when I opened it, I recognized them instantly, the $5,000 ring set she'd stolen. Except these weren't the exact same ones the police had seized. These were replicas. Cheaper. Lighter. Almost plastic. Taped to the bottom of the box was a note, written in tight, controlled handwriting. I lost everything. You win. D. I stared at it for a long time. It wasn't remorse. It wasn't forgiveness. It was defeat. I placed the rings in my desk drawer, not because I wanted them, but because they were proof. Proof that sometimes you don't have to ruin someone to get revenge. Sometimes, you just have to outlast them. I told Kayla about the interview over dinner that weekend. She and Troy both roared with laughter when I described Dana's face. You didn't let her talk at all? Kayla asked. I smirked. Not a word. Just enough silence for her to choke on. I hope she walked out and cried in the parking lot, Troy muttered. I sipped my wine. That's the thing. I don't care anymore. Whether she cried, screamed, or drove off in silence, it's irrelevant. Because she had to walk out knowing I saw her. All of her. And I'm still standing. Kayla raised her glass. To poetic justice. Troy chimed in. To patience. I added the final toast. To never underestimating the quiet ones. We clinked glasses. Later that night, I sat alone on my balcony, watching the city lights. And I thought about the girl I used to be, the one who left company years ago, thinking she needed a degree to matter. The one who cried on her bed, clutching a termination letter and wondering if anyone would believe her side of the story. She had no voice then. But she built one. Brick by brick. With every respectful no, with every quiet I'll prove you wrong, with every hour spent mentoring others and making the workplace safer, she reclaimed power Dana thought she had taken. And the final piece? That wasn't in the courtroom. That wasn't in the settlement check. It was in watching Dana walk out the door, her resume forgotten, her pride shattered, not by revenge, but by reality. Because revenge isn't always fire. Sometimes, it's frost. And nothing burns quite like being iced out of the life you tried to steal. The story could have ended with Dana walking out of that interview, jobless, exposed, and irrelevant. But revenge stories, at least the true ones, never end with a single slam of the door. They linger. They evolve. They seep into every quiet moment afterward and redefine who you are, not because of what you lost, but because of what you gained. I didn't rebuild my life for revenge. But revenge became the final, accidental reward. In the years following Dana's exit, I carved a path that looked nothing like the old Ava, the one who stayed late to cover for others, who second-guessed herself in every meeting, who said sorry even when she was right. The new Ava? She didn't apologize for being thorough. She didn't sit quietly when someone took credit for her work. She made space at the table, for women who reminded her of herself and for women nothing like her, too. The ones who'd never been heard. Who'd never had a Kayla in their corner. Company A grew under our leadership. I launched a mentorship program focused on ethical leadership. We offered second chances to women re-entering the workforce after injustice, wrongful termination, harassment, motherhood discrimination. I was building the kind of workplace I once dreamed of in silence. And Kayla? After Dana's trial, she left Company B. I offered her a job the moment we had room. Today, she's head of warehouse operations, and she runs that floor like a queen with steel in her spine. Troy? He's the quiet legend behind the curtain. The man who hit record and changed the trajectory of justice. We laugh now, sometimes, thinking about how close it all came to never being exposed. If Dana had been just a little less drunk that night, if Troy had hesitated a second longer. But fate's funny like that. I also reconnected with a few other ex-employees from Company B who'd left quietly, long before me. Some had stories about Dana. Others had nothing but the same numb look I'd carried. One of them, a former customer service rep, told me Dana had once moved her off the schedule for not smiling enough around clients. Another remembered Dana blocking her promotion because leadership is about presence. That presence, apparently, meant red nails, fake flattery, and sharp elbows. We all shared a laugh. Then a silence. Then something close to healing. I sometimes wonder what Dana is doing now. If she ever thinks of me. If she still blames me for her downfall, or if she finally realized it was always her own reflection waiting with the knife. But mostly, I don't think about her at all. I think about the people who stayed. Who saw the worst and kept showing up anyway. The ones who believed in ethics even when no one was watching. The ones who know that strength doesn't always shout, it waits. And I think about the moment I stood in that office, her resume in hand, and realized. This wasn't just closure. This was power. The quiet, elegant kind. The kind that doesn't need to destroy to win. The kind that outlasts every lie. The kind that makes your enemies knock on your door years later, only for you to smile and say, I don't think you'll be a good fit here. And that, my friend? That's the real cherry on top.